All right, Sunday night, Left Coast Love 2020. Sunday night. Episode 9. I've been at this for 9 weeks now. So, we got a lot to talk about, a lot going on. And tonight's episode is brought to you by me on a Sunday night. The laundry's folded. The family's fed, the showers are done, the dog is walked, the dishwasher is running. I think that's everything. Not gonna lie, I was a little nervous, very nervous this morning because usually by Friday I know what I'm going to talk about on Sunday. So I start and I put together a little outline, and from there I just take some notes, and then later on put together the slides, and then we're kind of ready to go. And again, if you're not watching on YouTube, that's fine. I really try to set this up so it's really just a conversation. My wife was like, "Oh, there he goes, going to talk to the internet tonight." Yep. So today was absolutely miserable heat-wise here, and we have another fire up in St. Helena, which is now raining ash back down. So we had a little respite of about 3 or 4 days before we were right back to just super oppressively hot, as well as at the same time not being able to go outside because of the smoke and the ash and still COVID, of course, so that still limits where we go. We got a potpourri, a cornucopia, a plethora, pick a word, a hodgepodge of topics to get through. So that's what I was saying. I got up this morning, I didn't have anything. And by the time I was getting ready for this, I figured maybe I might even have to cut a few things short. But first thing this week, Elementary, my dear. So a little fun, a little play on the Sherlock Holmes riff there. So Parker and I settled in today to watch the new Netflix release of Enola Holmes. So it stars, I think, Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things fame, and Henry Cavill of Superman fame, and some other folks that you'll recognize, but maybe not necessarily household names. And a couple of things. So you'll see this touted, and a lot of reviews talk about, oh, it's a family film, watch it with the whole family. And I have to agree, there wasn't really anything in this film that was shocking or awkward to be watching with really anyone of any age. It takes place around the turn of the century, so with women's suffrage and getting the right to vote, as well as some changes to the social order that was going on in Britain at the time through a number of different, I don't know if they call them referendums, but different votes and things that Parliament was taking at the time to address some of the social issues, as well as the division between the haves and the have-nots. But anyways, as far as a family film goes, it was fun. I don't know that it lived up to the hype, so I probably would have been better off watching it without having seen any of or even the trailer. The trailer kind of came across as very whimsical and, oh, hey, we're going to go on an adventure with Enola. And you do indeed go on an adventure, but it drags in a lot of places and it is very dialogue heavy. So for my 11-year-old daughter, she made it pretty far. I think we were into the third act before I looked over and she was already checking stuff on her phone. Some of the scenes went on painfully long. But for me, I don't know if in the beginning it was a little bit charming to set her up as the narrator of her own story. So in that capacity, she could break the fourth wall and talk to the camera or talk to the audience. And when she was filling in the backstory at the beginning of the film, I thought it worked really quite well. Over the course of the adventure, it becomes a little tiresome, and I thought they leaned on it a little too much. I said, the note I took is I said, this will no doubt delight families, with the emphasis on light. So, and when I say light, I'm talking about like the light beer light, Lite. So while it did sort of push or bring up some of the social issues and done in a way that forces the viewer to draw parallels to kind of what's going on in the world today, I thought that it pushed really hard to make sure that we understood at all times that, that, hey, she was, Enola was a strong female lead. She was the protagonist. She was the driver, even though her brother Sherlock Holmes was more famous and her other brother was rich and powerful. But long story short, they really went to great pains to show us Enola driving a car, playing sports, performing feats of strength. It was Festivus at one time. I kept waiting for the Rocky montage to start up, as she was going through her training, the rigors of both her physical and academic training as a child. But it was presented in such a way that it was like, hey, look, there's driving, there's sports, there's strength, there's fighting for a girl. And everything felt like it was pushing that for a girl, and I don't know that it really needed it, because the story had enough of Sherlock to keep people that weren't necessarily going to be drawn to this, like the parents in the household, like, oh yeah, we know Sherlock Holmes, to keep us interested in this story. But I don't know, there was puzzles, there was a little bit of action, there was some light fighting, if you will. And I think it was good enough to just stand on its own. They should have just let the story be the story. And, they do it with other movies and stuff that we see on TV these days. So I just, that's my 2 cents, but it was definitely worthwhile. I think it could have been a little bit better if, like I said, if they just spent less time going, hey, look at the girl doing ... and whatever that thing was. But my daughter and I liked it, and it feels like, it could be a setup for some franchises, a franchise. They could probably put together a couple more pretty engaging stories. So, Enola Holmes, now appearing on Netflix, so definitely recommended, and something the whole family can enjoy. And speaking of stuff the whole family can enjoy, right around the corner, it's Halloween. I like, again, with COVID and not traveling for work and just being home the time just feels weird. But for us, we felt like, hey, look, let's shake the funk off and start to set some stuff up. At least take a little extra time. We decorate the house, put some Halloween stuff up. Parker and I grabbed some big ass bag of candy and set up a candy dish, which we've been pilfering. We've got some masks out and some different things, and I know it's not even October yet, but I don't know. It feels like we got robbed of being able to do really anything substantial this summer, and I don't know what Thanksgiving and Christmas are going to look like. So at least while the weather's still nice enough for us to be out, it's very hot, but we can still be outside and take advantage of at least that part of California. Parker and I pulled out of the garage the different bins that we have for all the Halloween stuff and started setting that up around the outside of the house. The other thing we're doing this year is we went out when we were at Target, because that's really the only thing to do, I guess, is we got some Halloween cards. So she's been fascinated lately with mail and the post office. And again, without getting political or whatever, I don't think anyone would disagree that spending some money on stamps and utilizing the post office a little bit is probably not a bad idea. We don't have 100 of these. We're only sending out 10 or 12. But it was actually Parker's idea. So again, it gives us something to do other than just watch a screen or watch a movie. We're going to sit down and fill out the cards, and sometimes what she likes to do is print different things and put them in the cards. So if you're in the immediate family and listening in on the podcast tonight, be on the lookout. Very soon we'll be kicking out some Halloween cards from the left coast. Try to make the most of the trick-or-treat season. Speaking of Target, so while we were at Target, I happened to notice these Hot Wheel cars, and they come it's almost like a jewel case, if you will. Looks like something like an Apple device would come into. It's got a little magnet on pops up like a lid. And down in, and the one I grabbed here is the Batman Arkham Knight Batmobile, Series 104 of 05. And for the most part, like Hot Wheels typically run from like 99 cents to like $2.99 for just kind of normal Hot Wheels cars. This one with the packaging and all this, I looked down, was $4.99, and I flipped it over on the back, and I'm trying to figure out, well, what for $4.99, what makes this so much different? Because inside it still looks like a Hot Wheels car, but it had Batman on it, and I'm just, we get distracted. I get distracted easily sometimes when Parker and I are shopping at Target. So I grab one for me, and then I also grab one for my neighbor across the street, because on the back they have an app, a Hot Wheels app that you can download, and through Bluetooth you can pull this particular vehicle into a game and then use this vehicle and everything that comes with it to just totally kick ass in this Hot Wheels game. And they say ID, so I'm assuming that once you scan the car and pull it into the game, there's some sort of serial number or whatever. I did notice that when you go back to play the game, I have it on my phone, that when you go back to play the game the next day, even though I had scanned the car the day before, that car was not automatically held in the game. So you actually have to then I had to physically pair the car back to the phone to get it back into the game. And at least for me, because I'm not really a gamer, the and it's on a phone. The game is simple enough that I play it. I've actually played it for like half hour, 45 minutes straight, and it's easy enough that I can keep moving forward on it. Not flawlessly, but for the most part, at least right now in the early rounds, because I have the Batmobile in the app, because you can download the app and you get a basic car, and depending on how you do in the races, you level up and so forth. But for the $4.99, apparently the my Batmobile here, my Tumbler, comes preloaded with like these insane amounts of power and so at least for the past 3 days I've been pretty much able to crush any vehicle that comes up against me in the game. So for $4.99, I'm a sucker. We talk about the collecting thing, so being a collector. So for $4.99, with a combination of the packaging and the actual Hot Wheels car is pretty cool, because you can still use it on a Hot Wheels track and race it. I mean, it's just a regular Hot Wheels car, except on the bottom there's this Bluetooth chip, or maybe it's a RFID. I'm not sure. It says you have to pair. I had to pair it with Bluetooth, but and then downloaded the app. The app does claim to be safe for kids. At least right now, I haven't figured out a way to race with anyone other than other cars that the game puts up or the computer puts up against me. I don't believe, unless, at least just for the single cars, I think Hot Wheels does have some play sets where if you're willing to put down a little more money, where you can activate part of the play set into the game, and then have your friends who also have these vehicles scan them in and then be able to race them virtually. But at least as far as I can tell right now, there's no way to get online. But actually pretty fun. We just got a new Starbucks here in lovely Novato, California, and I always joke with my daughter. I said, I only go there. They have a drive-through, so we only go there if we're not in a hurry. And it doesn't matter if there's no one in line or if there's 20 cars in line. It's always a minimum 30 minutes to get through. And we don't get fancy drinks. We're talking like iced coffee with cream and sugar, or maybe a shot of caramel for Parker, but that's about it. So we both bring our phones with us, and while we're waiting in the car, we're doing different things. So I'm either watching, catching up, or getting ahead on an episode of The Sopranos. I think we talked about that last week, and I'll give a little update later on. Or now I've been doing the Hot Wheels game, and that's where I learned the hard way that I had to have the Batmobile, the physical car, with me to get it back into the game, because once I came home and then repaired the car to the game, I was able to pull my my Batmobile, my Tumbler, Arkham Knight Batmobile back into the game. It's pretty sick, actually, because the game does mimic the old, if you're old like me, the old plastic track. It does have full loops in it. At least as far as I can tell right now, I can steer right and left, and if you don't hit the sides, it seems like you go a little bit faster and faster, and that's how you build up speed, is by staying true or keeping your line. So the better you are at keeping the line, especially with the Batmobile, I'll just crush any other car in there. Speaking of my neighbor, the one I picked up one of these for, he's a Transformer guy. So his Transformer and a Lego guy. So his garage is full of Transformer, all different kinds of Transformers and stuff. But he'll dabble and grab stuff here and there. He's got some Hot Wheels and things. and he gave me a Rick and Morty Hot Wheels. So I thought that was pretty cool. It's the spaceship, and complete with the Rick and Morty and Adult Swim packaging. I don't believe that one was up in the $4.99 range, which is I don't know, feels kind of steep, but with being able to use the car in the game, I think I've gotten at least $5 worth of joy out of this thing so far. The Rick and Morty thing got me thinking because the only Hot Wheels or miniature cars, if you will, that I have, like as part of collections or collectibles, are all licensed properties. They're not actual, like, ooh, this is a vintage Hot Wheel, like a 1969 microbus, still mint on card or whatever. I don't have anything like that, but what I do have are, like I said, now I have the Rick and Morty, the Rick and Morty spaceship, as well as my Batmobile here. And then I have some of the die-cast replicas from the John Wick movies. And I'm going to wait because once we get into October, we start the countdown to John Wick Day. And I'll do a whole Sunday on, we're going to go out. We'll go down to the basement, and we'll break out the sledgehammer and bust up the concrete and pull up the John Wick box and break into that and go through those items. I think that'll be a fun episode. But again, it got me thinking that, for me to get me even over to the Hot Wheels or the cars, because I have so much with the comics and all this other stuff. The comics and the books is if it's a licensed property that goes along with, the comics or one of the other characters or series that I'm following. So there you go, little Hot Wheels. I believe they're called Hot Wheels ID, and you can actually download the game and play, level up for free. You don't have to buy one of the cars to play the race game. Like I said, it's pretty cool and pretty satisfying. And if you decide, they have actually a whole, I think they're into their third year of these ID cards. That you can pull into the game. The packaging on these is cute. Is really nice. I would imagine that if you're a Hot Wheels guy or even a light gamer, that I could totally see if I had some extra cash to maybe get sucked into getting a little shelf worth of these. But for right now, we're gonna stick with Batman. All right. So we started talking last week, or I was sharing that I've been going back and rereading Amazing Spider-Man, starting with Amazing Fantasy 15, which was the first appearance of Spider-Man. Stan Lee, Steve Ditko. And then beginning with issue 1, probably left off, I think we were like issue 8 or 9. I finished the first volume in this paperback collection, softcover collection I have of all of the early issues of Spider-Man. And, it really got me thinking, because I still read current comics. And wow, man, like they pack so much stuff, especially the Marvel comics and these Spider-Man comics. So, in the short time period of it was probably closer to 2 years, but the first year and a half of Spider-Man being out there, if you take a look here, if you're watching on the YouTube, I have a nice screenshot of kind of his rogues gallery, and this is a list of heavy hitters and villains that have been mainstays in the Spider-Man mythology all the way up to today and into the movies. And this includes the Enforcers, Mysterio, the Vulture, the Tinkerer, the Chameleon, the Green Goblin, Kraven the Hunter, Doctor Doom, the Lizard, Electro. I'm like, this is all within the first year. This is insanity. I can't, you know, I think to the stories that I read today, and to get through that many villains, that's literally like, I would imagine today at Marvel, you know, here we go. This is what we're going to map out for the next 5 years. This is, you know, first Spider-Man's, they might change the order, but just the sheer number of stories, and these are full length, a lot of times text heavy stories, complete with keeping you up to date with kind of the all of the backstories for the villains, as well as now over time we're starting to really understand more about J. Jonah Jameson, as well as the supporting cast of Flash Thompson. Aunt May's been in the hospital 6 times by now, near death. The other thing, reading them in this kind of compressed time period, is I'm starting to see some of the writing devices, especially for the Spider-Man book during this time. And that's primarily around repeating a lot of the story devices, such as either Spider-Man's framed or inadvertently stumbles into a situation where it's misinterpreted that he's doing something bad. This gives J. Jonah Jameson the opportunity to write an opinion piece, publish an extra at the newspaper vilifying him, only to have Spider-Man vindicated at the end of the story, because it's either the Chameleon or the Tinkerer or in some even Mysterio impersonating Spider-Man to set him up or draw him out into a fight. The Green Goblin, I had forgotten how early and how often he appeared in this first 2 years of Spider-Man. His character, so we still don't know at this point who he is. Spider-Man has, or Peter Parker has, crossed paths with him on the sidewalk. The character has triggered his spider sense, which now that we're starting to get into some of these year 2 issues, they've kind of toned down the use of the spider sense as this catch-all power that people could send him messages on, or that he can use as some sort of radar. But speaking of radar, so in addition to the Rogues Gallery that we just talked about here, again, during this same time period, we had guest appearances from the Hulk, the Fantastic Four, Daredevil, and Doctor Strange. So, again, these are important, especially in the early issues of Marvel as they were building out their universe, so that readers, it didn't matter if you were reading a Fantastic Four book and a Spider-Man book and only an Iron Man book or any combination, that you always felt that these characters and stories were occurring around, in the same shared universe and around the same time, and that the characters also had relationships and knew of each other. So in some cases, I mean, obviously Doctor Doom is originally and is forever tied with the Fantastic Four, but Doctor Doom was again used as an early villain or foil for Spider-Man, and it was Spider-Man's thinking that actually helped him. I don't want to say he actually straight up defeated Doctor Doom, but he prevented Doctor Doom from seeing his plan or his evil plan to fruition. So he had to go back to the laboratory. The other thing that jumped out to me, now that I'm fully entrenched into the Ditko period of these Spider-Man stories, and have reacclimated myself to the storytelling, the art style, as well as the amount of activity and action. And now what I'm starting to feel like is this Ditko art it almost begins to feel current. And, I have a couple of examples that I'm sharing on the screen here from a couple of different splash pages that Steve Ditko did across the Spider-Man annual. So the Spider-Man annual, the very first one, number 1, that is actually a masterpiece. His origin is retold. There is almost the entire Rogues Gallery. Spider-Man has to fight his way through one or more of them, each one wearing him down, each one requiring him to both outsmart and exert himself physically in ways that he hadn't considered before. And each one of the battles included one of these Steve Ditko splash pages. And like I said, I could totally see, this fitting into today's, this stuff would stand up today. It is a little text heavy, so I don't know how much new folks might appeal to, but to go from here to Todd McFarlane, years later, it's not that big of a leap, and you can totally see the influence and the foundation work that Steve Ditko did in putting together these early Spider-Man stories. The next screen I'm sharing here, these are what are called either traditionally 6 or 9 panel, variations on the 9 panel layout, where again the amount of action and thought that goes into each of the battle sequences in these early issues. And the page I'm sharing here is a fight with Kraven the Hunter. And what Kraven does is wear Spider-Man down, and then over the course of the battle, slyly shackles him on the leg and then on the arm. And then, unfortunately for Spider-Man, the shackles contain these very powerful electromagnets. Kraven also uses some tranquilizer or some drugs on Spider-Man to slow him down. And again, Spider-Man has to use a combination of his wits and his physical or proportionate strength of a spider to be able to ultimately defeat Kraven at the end of the story. So just finished the first volume. We have the next chunk of stories. I believe the next volume is another 1.5 or 2 years worth of these stories, so we'll still be working through the Ditko years. But now that I've reacclimated myself to this particular type of storytelling and the amount of words, I'm able to better plan out, when to sit down and be able to dedicate myself to be able to work through. Usually I like to do 2 or 3 issues at a time to really, see the momentum of the stories. So, like I said, this is awesome. Probably one of the few benefits of the COVID is now actually taking the time to go back and read a lot of these books and collections that I have on the bookshelves back here that I've accumulated over the years. All right. Well, in addition to Spider-Man update, maybe we'll give a quick update on the Sopranos as well. So fully into season 3, Meadows in college, Tony's mother is dead, and starting to notice some trends here now that we have everybody knows who all the characters are. A lot of the backstories have been developed, as well as kind of the same idea as these rereading these Spider-Man books. Is I've read them in the past, so I've seen these Soprano episodes, but just not in this compressed amount of time, kind of one after another. We're picking off, Stacy and I are knocking these down, I want to say like 2 or 3 a day on the weekends, and 1 to 2 episodes a day during the week. So, you have actually see how the story had to be changed when Tony's mother died. I don't believe they had planned for that, and a character they had just taken out of the series. So Tony's sister Janice was removed, or not moved, but she was kind of done with at the end of season 2 when she shot her fiance in the chest 2 times in their living room or in the dining room of her mother's house. And then mourned over him because now she wasn't going to be married and get her big house. But similar to what I think is where how Dallas has been misrepresented over the years, where everybody's so quick to hate on JR, and again, he is a villain. They never presented him as anything but as far as consistency and being a character that once you understood what that character was about, was true to himself and true to what that character was set up. You know, he never changed throughout that series. And I'm starting to see the same thing with Tony James Gandolfini playing Tony in The Sopranos. And, in his effort to try to, within the framework that he can operate in, or he feels he can operate in, has reached out to both Dr. Melfi and to his wife Carmela a couple of different times to help him get centered, to get better adjusted, to deal with, all kinds of different things that have happened over the course of the first 3 seasons. And even though he's a villain, he's a bad man, he's a terrible person, he's a bad character, he understands and lives with the cost of the decisions he makes and the benefits that the life he's leading or living is affording him and his family. And over the course of these 3 seasons, what I've started to see is Dr. Melfi, in my opinion, is the problem. She's changed from the beginning of the series to where she's at now. And of course, a lot happened to her. I don't want to do a whole lot of spoilers. But she was assaulted pretty terribly and had an opportunity to use her relationship with Tony to exact revenge on the person that had assaulted her. But she did expose and share information that was patient-client with her ex-husband and with her therapist. I don't know that she was as pure and true as she set herself up to be, or as noble as she thought she was being, in respecting the oath to take care of patients and try to, understanding full well what was going on with Tony and the repercussions of the relationship that was developing between the two of them. The other one is Carmela. So again, she, between going back and forth from being religious to being needy, to looking for extracurricular activities, to not. I noticed that they spent a lot of time with the interior shots, especially inside of Tony's house, to show the influence that Carmela had on the house, the furniture, the accessories, the drapes, the both the gaudiness of it and the opulence. It's a weird, I don't know how to explain it, because any one of the items is probably not a bad thing, but in combination with the 26 other items that were either in the room or in the shot along with it, it always feels like over the top, or not really, as long as it's of a certain value or cost. So long story short, Carmela has no problem with the benefits of the life. And a couple of times she has these monologues or little soliloquies, if you will, where she talks about even at times understanding that Tony wasn't being true to their marriage, but for one reason or another, at a given time, she might let it slide because of X, Y, or Z. But then later on, at different times, this was unacceptable. So, as far as like setting a consistent target for Tony to land on, understanding that this guy is, a psychopath, Camarella didn't really do a great job setting herself up for success in that relationship. So, again, I kind of bring it back to there was a lot of people around Tony that wanted the benefits of the life, wanted the, whether it be the whiff of power, whether it be the money, whether it be the allure of being outside the law or whatever it was. But all of the people that wanted those benefits but weren't willing to pay and take on the full weight and cost of that, they didn't last very long in the show. So that's where I'm starting to see the pattern there. So as they bring on the guest star or the guest, and I don't know if we really call them stunts, but I am starting to notice this pattern of, hey, now it's, it's the episodes with Ralphie. So we got, Pantaleone doing his stuff, and then, that's going to, then we get the next, was it Steve Buscemi comes in, and then he does his thing, and then we get, and, I had forgotten about that, but now, and he's not the first one. We just had Burt Ward in the episode, who was from both The Godfather as well as the Rocky movie. He was Adrian's brother, the little short guy. What about me, Rocky? What about me? But he did a couple episode arc on The Sopranos, and you do see them bringing in, for one reason or another, new wise guys. But good fun. I think we're more than halfway through, so I imagine just another 2 weeks and we'll be done. Be done with The Sopranos. So there you go. Bringing it home. Wow, 40 minutes. Time flies when I get alone with the internet. You listen to me. You don't talk back. All right, so what do we got left for this week? All right, I don't know if this is a rant, maybe just an observation for any of you folks that are of my age bracket, the 50 plus. Yes, I have my AARP card. But again, learning some interesting lessons with the internet. And to me, this is probably weird because, and here's where I sound like the old man, which was, I was in California basically when the internet kind of came up, with the Netscape and the browser wars and Steve Jobs and all of that stuff. I was living in Mountain View. And at that time I was working for HP, and you could, we were allowed to go anywhere, learn anything, try anything. And if anything, I was a super early adopter for all kinds of stuff internet. But these days, man, so far ahead of me now. And I try to utilize the sites, but what I learn is, I guess everybody has to be safe or whatever. But over the past couple of weeks, and I have been to the doctor, otherwise I wouldn't be, sharing this first here. I noticed that my left arm was like, I want to say it was like 50% weaker than it normally is. So, and so as a result, I only noticed it like, grabbing a full gallon of milk or a big jug of laundry detergent, or something of that nature, or some weird kind of twist and pull, whatever. But a very acute and sharp pain, and definitely noticeable of not being able to handle as much weight. So I had to go get my physical anyway. So My wife scheduled a doctor's appointment, but prior to that, when I first noticed my arm losing strength, I go to WebMD or a couple of these websites and, type in some symptoms and, male, age 50, blah, blah, blah. And, every single website tells me I'm having a stroke. And I'm like, okay, I'm not having a stroke. This has been going on for like 2 weeks. Hopefully I didn't have a stroke and this is just all in my head, but I didn't think it was that. So good news was, been to the doctor and healthy, looking good. Going to be going back to get some flu shots, shingle shots, to get geared up for kind of the next phase of life, as well as the next the cold and flu season. Then we get ready for the COVID vaccine. But there you go, a little quickie medical update. Going in tomorrow, I did get referred on because we couldn't find anything directly kind of wrong with my arm. So we're thinking it might be a pinched nerve or something else, but I am going to have a specialist look at it. They're going to do an X-ray and MRI on it tomorrow just to double check and make sure there's nothing we should know more about. So that's next week coming up on the horizon. So that's something to look forward to. And then, yay, our payphone comes back. So I've been exchanging emails with Mike, the payphone guy in New York, who was able to reprogram the Pac Bell payphone I got for my wife and put a new handle and cord on it that I was able to find online, new stock, new old stock. To give it that nice clean look on it, and he programmed the board on the phone. So now for 25 cents, we can place outgoing calls, and he even gave us a new keypad because apparently there was a problem with that keypad. So super stoked that we did decide to send it off for the final leg of its rehabilitation and bringing it back online, back into service. Payphone. We have a place for it inside the house. We're all excited. We're ready for the new arrival. And then, last but not least, yesterday was one of record store days, I guess. So Parker and I had a habit over the past 3 years of going to record store day. Our town, Nevada, actually has a small record store called Watts Music. It's been here for 35 plus years. It's a Marin staple, and because of the history of Marin and the various residents that have lived here or passed through here, recorded music up in here, the record store has been known to, if various people are around recording or whatever, you could most likely find them at one time or another at Watts Music. And it's run by a super nice guy, and if he doesn't have it, he can get it for you. Parker and I, even though we don't have a record player, we like the fact that we do have the small business here, and it's in a cute little part of our downtown. And for some of the things, I have picked up a vinyl or whatever from a record store day and then either traded it for something else or given it as a gift, or in some cases actually flipped it. But the past 2 years, they've released a couple of CDs, so at least I could go and support the store by buying something. Last year was a Grateful Dead CD from 2 different nights of acoustic shows they did at the Warfield Theater back in the, I want to say, was it the late 80s maybe? Late 80s, early 90s. And at least with the CDs, I still have the ability to rip those and pull it over into my music library here and support the record store. Without a turntable, again, we're super duper careful about if we do buy vinyl. it usually ends up on the wall because, again, there's no way for us to play it back. The last thing I'm going to talk about, a couple of quick updates. October's coming, so I'll put a new playlist up on Spotify. I've actually been able to catch up on a lot of the new releases, so I have some new picks, as well as I love all the reissues that have been coming out. And since Parker signed us up for YouTube Premium, so we get all the YouTube stuff without any of the commercials, it's been a lot of fun to look at the suggestions. So I've been discovering some new bands or just rediscovering old tunes that way through chasing those rabbit holes. And then last but not least, so being home all this time with Parker, as she's been doing the online school, I noticed today that she actually spends more time in her. Like a year ago, I couldn't get that kid to go in her room. She didn't want to sleep in her room. She didn't want to do anything in her room. And now she's redecorating and setting herself up. And on the one hand, I'm super happy about it. And I like that she likes her space and she's trying to make it her own. And she's a great kid. I don't worry about what's going on in there. 9 times out of 10, she's either reading or working on her homework. But the second part of it is a little bit of my heart does break, because now, for the first, 5-6 years we lived in this house here, every time I would look down the hall, her door was always open. I can't ever remember a time that the door to Parker's bedroom was closed. And now when I look down the hallway, there are times, it's not a lot, but there are times when the door is closed and my first instinct is to kind of open it, but then I catch myself and then I remember, what's the saying, right? If one door closes, the beautiful butterfly emerges. No, that's something else. That's the whole from Out of the Cocoon. But I guess you could put the two together. So, giving her time to find her space and think and kind of get to be even more of Parker, that when the door is open or when the door opens again, what comes out is even better than what went behind the door. So I guess that does fit. So right, when one door closes, another one opens. So end of September here. All right, we're almost out of 2020. Almost. Just hanging on, people. We just got to make it through a couple of holidays and the election. So I hope everybody's doing well, and I appreciate your time and attention, and the comments and the messages I get over on Facebook. So until next Sunday, Jackson and I thank you, and we'll be back at you. Oh, that wasn't too bad, I don't think.